Hey everybody, welcome back to another live this Sunday over here on the Clark Real Estate YouTube channel. I appreciate everybody who has joined the channel. I appreciate everybody who has either commented, enjoyed in live discussion, came back and watched the replay and commented below. And of course, as always, before I get started, I want to make sure that we are live, so in case nobody's all right, we are, in case nobody joins the discussion tonight, at least we know that this will be out there in the universe. And so as you guys know, that we will be discussing tonight in regards to will mortgage rates dipping cause buyers to kind of jump back in the housing market, and how can this affect their purchasing power. So we'll kind of explore to what and what effect, I should say, as far as how much the rates dropped, and we'll just dig into different data, different information, and we'll sit here and we will go through this tonight. Again, don't be scared to comment inside the live chat. That's the reason why we go live on these YouTube. And if you are coming over to the channel for the first time, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, click that like button, to make sure we can kind of shoot through the algorithm. So anybody else who is watching, who is looking for real estate information or want to know more about this topic or want to be a part of this discussion, they can kind of join in to do so. So let's jump into this discussion tonight. And we are going to talk about the whole thing in regards to these mortgage rates dropping. So if you are in the chat, don't be scared to talk. Don't be scared to have discussion. If you have any questions about real estate, in regards to whether you're buying, whether you're selling, whether you're on the fence or trying to figure out what's going on, trying to understand more about housing and real estate, that's the purpose of, again, me creating this YouTube channel, having discussions, these live discussions with you guys, and also being able to take part in any type of questions, I guess you should say, that you might have. So don't be scared to comment in the live discussion, in the live chat. And again, if you're watching this back on a replay, don't be scared to comment below. And if you need, you can always reach out. My email will be below, whether it be on the channel or on the bottom of this video when it's posted. But anyway, let's kind of jump into this whole thing about, will these mortgage rates dipping bring home buyers back into the real estate market, right? So it says right here, in regards to, it says, will the housing market bounce back as mortgage rates drop in 2025? So you guys are going to be surprised that the mortgage rates haven't really dropped that much. But what we're going to do, we're going to deep dive into how mortgage rates typically drop, why they typically drop, if they're baked in like they were last time in September of last year when the Fed went on that cutting situation as far as the interest rates. A lot of people was very surprised that the mortgage rates, instead of actually going down, they fluctuated up and then they settled back down to where they were already at. Okay, no problem, Lang. Thanks for joining. It seems like everybody is driving. MHOA, I appreciate you being here as well. I know Lang says she's here as well. Thank you guys for joining. I know a lot of people are driving and have things to do. But needless to say, we'll kind of discuss some of that, give you guys some more insight so you can understand how it works. And if you know anybody that's been talking about real estate, whether it is trying to buy in this unpredictable market, trying to sell in this unpredictable market, you should definitely send them this video, because I feel like a lot of people are missing out on important information and getting the nuances of things. And I am going to make sure I say this too before we get into the discussion as well. I'm not a lender, I'm not a financier, and I'm not an economist. Okay, I'm just I guess I should say, an educated realtor who loves this profession. So I research, I listen, I understand, I gain more knowledge, and of course through experience you get more knowledge as well. But that is what I do. And so everything that you hear, or you seen in the videos, or you listen to, whether it be on my social media page, any other social media page, you always want to follow up with an expert in that field as well, or have more conversations with other experts in the field. All right. So because everybody's information, I don't want to say it's different, but you want to make sure they kind of line up to make sense. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Let's get into this. It says a modest drop in mortgage rates is likely to provide some much needed relief and a potential boost to the housing market in 2025, but it won't be a magic bullet. The average 30-year U.S. mortgage rate has dipped to its lowest point in nearly 10 months. And while that's good news, several factors still need to align for a significant market turnaround. And I feel like one of the factors that's needed is, of course, we need to see home prices adjust down, right? I know everybody's like, oh, Devon, oh, is my phone chugging against you guys? I know everybody's like, Devon, why do you want prices to cool more or whatever? And I'm saying, I don't want people to be underwater with their mortgages. I don't want people to lose, equity per se in their housing. But I also want people to understand when we have that shift that happened in the pandemic in regards to the pricing, the percentage of prices as far as homes going up 30, 40, 50, 60, 70%, some cases 100%, 200%. I've seen it. It's okay to take a little price reduction and still get some of that equity out of your house, right? So I just needed to come back down to senses where future generations will be able to purchase. And then also people that are trying to purchase now will be able to buy a house in the future. If we keep allowing prices to go up, then we won't have any sustainability where somebody can actually afford a house. So I feel like outside of the mortgage rates going down, we also need, like they said, several factors still need to align for a significant market turnaround. And I feel like prices need to align to make that happen. It says, what's happening with mortgage rates? So this is why what we're kind of talking about right now. The discussion, as I said, the mortgage rates dipped. They actually dipped and they actually went back up prior to the weekend subsiding. Or I should say coming into the weekend, they actually went back up. What's going on, David Matney? How you doing? Live from Omaha, Nebraska. If you guys are in the Omaha area, if you're relocating to Omaha, David is a trusted realtor in that Omaha, Nebraska area. So please go over to and give him a like, a subscribe, follow his channel, and also reach out to him. He is very, very knowledgeable, a great realtor, a great resource, someone you can rely on, trust on, and you definitely should reach out to David Matney, living in Omaha, Nebraska. So I appreciate you being here tonight, David. Let me know your take on regards to this, what's happening in regards to these interest rates. So it says, what's happening with mortgage rates? Let's get down to the numbers. According to Freddie Mac, the average rate on a 30-year mortgage has fallen to 6.58, down from 6.63 the previous week. So as you guys can see, yes, interest rates, or mortgage rates, I should say, not interest rates. Mortgage rates, well, I guess you could say interest rates. They dipped, but they didn't dip that much. So they dipped about what? 5%, I should say, with not 5%, but about 5. I guess I don't want to say points, but they're down. It's down about 5%, I guess I'll say, to kind of levy that in regard to 0.05%. There we go. It's down 0.05%, I should say. So it hasn't really shifted down that much in regard to those interest rates. HOA made it to Montana, found a wide spot in the road to turn in. Oh, great. I'm glad you made it to Montana safely. I know that road trip is probably pretty fun, sightseeing, all those things. I remember when I took a road trip from Jersey all the way to California. So definitely be safe and have a great time sightseeing and enjoying the road. So it said, here's a quick comparison to give some context. It says mortgage type, 30-year fixed. Current rate as of August 2025 is 6.58. Previous week was 6.63, and then a year ago was 6.49. As you guys know, interest rates had been rising. So a year ago, interest rates were actually cheaper than where we're at now. And it's so funny because everybody has been predicting that the interest rates will go down. And even though they are going down, they're still higher than they were a year ago. So they're floating down, but they're still higher. So it's like it went up and it's coming back down, but it's still not on the same level it was a year ago, David said 50 basis points. You were right, about 0.5%. Okay. All right. I'll be trying to make sure that I'm making sense with people. I don't want people to be like, I'm confused. The volume is all over the place. So people are still texting me. I don't know. Everybody texts me during this time. But thank you, David. What's going on, Corey West? How you doing? Oh, I love the avatar. Everybody's having these cool avatars popping up here now. I love it. Cool. Good to see you as well. If you have any questions, anything you want to kind of figure out, let me know. Even if it's off the topic, if you just have some random questions, just let me know. Of course, staying within the real estate realm, but we're talking about these mortgage rates. And so the 15-year fix was at 5.71% currently as of August 2025. Previous week, it was at 5.75%. And a year ago, it was at 5.66%. So one of the sellers that I just recently worked with, and we helped him close on his house, the buyer actually did a 15-year conventional, Jesus, what I'm trying to say, fix on their mortgage. So when we were at the closing table and the attorney was kind of going through the documents, and she was like, yeah, for the next 30 years, and then she was like, whoa, 15 years. So some people, savvy, because they were an investor buyer, some savvy investor buyers are, doing certain taking out certain type of loans, 15-year fixes, or different things to kind of levy that interest rate and also be able to kind of pay off the debt quicker. It says with these small dips, while these small dips might not seem like a huge deal, it can make a difference in your monthly payments and ultimately what you can afford. So it says, why did mortgage rates drop? It says mortgage rates don't just move randomly. They are heavily influenced by factors like the Federal Reserve's interest rate decisions. The Fed's actions play a huge role. If they cut rates, mortgage rates tend to follow. So as I said, it tends to follow, but we know that mortgage rates kind of go more in tandem with that 10-year treasury. However, typically, as years have shown and as charts have shown, that when Feds typically would cut interest rates, that the mortgage rate would typically, like they said, would tend to follow. But we know that it's more connected to that 10-year treasury. It says the bond market expectations. So the bond market expectations is around that 10-year treasury, right? The 10-year treasury is about investors buying bonds. They're buying bonds, and this is what kind of falls in that 10-year treasury point. The bond market expectations, investors' beliefs about the economy and inflation also push rates up or down. So as you guys know, currently we are in an uncertain time. So it's making the bond market is it's not shifting too much, but it's shifting around in regards to people not knowing what's happening with these tariffs. People not knowing what's going to happen with the job market, because we're going to dive into a little bit of that too, about the job market report as far as it coming out, and it's weaker than they expected. And so that might have kind of put in a little bit of the fact why the mortgage rates kind of dipped a little bit. It says, weaker economic data like July job market reports, which we were just saying, figures have fueled speculation that the Fed might cut rates. As the 10-year treasury yield, the key indicator, lenders often use it as a guide for pricing home loans. Recently, this yield has been fluctuating, influenced by inflation reports and expectations of the Fed policy. So we kind of mentioned that a little bit ago. It says, will this really help the housing market? So that's the big question. People want to know, will interest rates help the housing market? How will it affect, sorry, you guys, give me 1 second. How will it affect the housing market? How will it help the housing market? And I guess I should say inside the, if you guys are in the live chat, or even if you're watching this on a replay, what do you feel like is a big factor as far as that might make you as a buyer kind of want to jump into the housing market, right? Because it's always great to get other people's opinions. Yes, I'm out all the time talking to different, people in regards to buying or selling houses per se, but it's always great to hear more information about what could behoove you to maybe jump into it and possibly purchase. Like I say, I'm a person, like I mentioned earlier, home prices, softening a little bit, and then also interest rates softening. And the reason why I say both in that sense is because home prices are so elevated now that it's like you almost need both to kind of go hand in hand in order to get a good mortgage, a monthly mortgage, and also to possibly even be at the same amount as what the current monthly rent is or below that. Because ideally, and in the past too, typically rent might be going up higher and people might be paying, and the mortgage might be below that or at the same amount as rent. But now we have rent is actually way cheaper than what mortgages are because the home prices are elevated. Even though technically, when you look at historical data as far as interest rates are not actually elevated per se. When you have like in the 80s and all that time where they were like 17%, 18% with interest rates. And even in the 90s, you had like 11% interest rates and things like that. Because like I mentioned before, my mom bought around like the interest rate level. So you had like those elevated interest rates around that time, but right now because the housing is so unaffordable, I don't know if you guys can see me because I feel like my light is so dim. I gotta one day I'm gonna get good light, but because the housings are as elevated as far as the affordability levels, and then the interest rates being in that price range of the 6% is making people's monthly mortgages around $2,500+ a month, right? Depending on what type of home you're buying. So let me know in the live chat or in the replay, what do you feel like needs to happen in regards to jumping in the market? Do you feel like these mortgage rates dipping a little bit could help you, or do you feel like it's more about the home prices, or do you feel like both simultaneously happening together? All right, let me know. So it said the big question is, that's the big question. So the big question is, will this really help? The housing market has been in a slump since 2022 because of high mortgage rates. It says home sales hit their lowest level in nearly 30 years last year. So will the rate drop change things? So again, they're saying home sales, not home prices. So home prices, they keep using the medium sales price, right? In the state in which you're in, and everybody we know in real estate, everything is locale. So your medium sales price could be different in this city compared to another city. But in totality, they kind of go more around the states per se when they kind of take the medium home price. And so because a lot more of higher price homes are selling, the medium home sales price is starting to push up more because they're not seeing as many lower price point houses sell, because we're not, honestly, probably not getting that many on the market, to be realistic, right? More people who have lower price homes, they got into the real estate market maybe a long time ago per se, and they're like, I don't want to sell. They might not have a mortgage no more, or maybe people bought in 2019, 2018, 2020 before the pandemic happened. They got maybe a good interest rate, 3 to 4%, because around that time you were seeing interest rates in the 3 to 4% range. And then when that pandemic hit, we started seeing that 2%. And then, we were in that 3% for a while, then we shot back up as far as interest rates. But in regards to that, people that might have entered into that lower level, they're like, if I sold my house right now for $250,000, what can I buy? And typically, most people that sell their house, they, most times, if they're say in their early 30s or 40s, they typically might want to move up because maybe they expanded their family, they need more space, they need more rooms, they want, ideally maybe more yard space. So, but at this point, people are like, well, do I want to actually buy a house? This house is let's say my monthly mortgage is $500 a month, have a low interest rate. A house, was only let's say $200,000. And do I want to buy up where now I still owe a mortgage on this house? I'm only going to get such and such as far as the return. And then in turn, I got to go to another house, that's costs more money. And then also the interest rate could be higher, which then in turn doubles or triples your monthly mortgage payments. So it's a lot of factors. Corey West said prices need to be more realistic. I agree, Corey. I definitely agree. Prices need to be more realistic. When you sit and look at the historical data of home prices, we need to adjust accordingly because, like I keep telling people, we shifted so much in regards to home prices jumping in that pandemic time. And I call it like, almost like inflated. Well, we know it's inflated prices, but like magic prices. Like people were just throwing out prices, and institutional investors were buying it and bidding, and then you had regular first time home buyers trying to bid, and you had local investors trying to bid. So you had so many people trying to bid for these houses that kept kind of pushing prices up, and you had people also paying above appraisal gaps, and then you had all this stuff going on, which inflated the prices. And now we really need the prices to be more realistic, like you said, and kind of adjust back down. And and again, people keep yelling to me, "Oh, Devon, but what about what about my equity? What about this?" And I'm like, well, again, if you bought your house in 2015, let's say, and it was $100,000, but now the house, according to comparables of what's happening in the area, is worth $350,000. It's okay to bring the house down to $300,000. Like I know a lot of people won't like that. I know sellers probably won't like that. But again, it's just being realistic to what's making sense, and also understanding. Sorry, I'm sorry, y'all. I keep knocking. Also understanding what the market is doing, understanding the trend. I feel like a lot of people are out of touch in regards to what's happening around them. It's becoming a thing of like, this is what I want, this is the price I want, and this is what I want to get. And it's like a lot of people are kind of just throwing houses up on the market now just to like see if they're going to get what they want to get, but they really don't want to sell their house. So I think most people, like you said, need to be realistic with their prices, need to understand the actual market around them, understand the trends that are happening. And I don't think a lot of people are looking at that, because I think some people are just like, let me just test the market and see what I can get, you know? So it says, here's where I think things get interesting. Joe, I think his name is Benner. I don't know if I'm saying it right. A senior economist at Realtor.com points out that delay may be enough, but it may take longer to lure more buyers back to the market. He said the good news is increased purchase power. Lower rates mean buyers can afford more house for the same monthly payment. So again, this is very subjective in regards to buyers being able to afford more, because again, yes, quote unquote, can buyers afford more because the interest rates are lower? Yes. However, does a buyer want to pay? So instead of paying $2,600 a month, does a buyer want to pay $2,500 a month? Because that might be the only price, $100 price, deduction. And yes, is $100 a good savings? Of course, it's a good savings. However, what if somebody's like, I prefer to save $600? I'd rather go from $2,600 to $2,000 a month. So it's like, I guess it all depends on you as a buyer. Where do you fall in regards to what are you looking at your monthly payment, right? In regards to interest rates. It says refinancing opportunities. Homeowners who have been waiting for low rates may now be able to refinance and save money. In fact, mortgage applications jumped nearly 11% last week, driven by refinance activity. And again, with the refinancing thing, we know in regards to refinancing, it's not going to make sense to refinance a small percentage in a mortgage dip. So if you're going from 6.5 to 6.4, it might not make sense to refinance. It might make sense to go from 6.5 to 5.5 to actually refinance then, because you have to you have to pay for refinancing. And I know there are some lenders that are saying they'll offer one-time, free refinance or streamlining and all these different things. There are different ways in regards to refinancing. So you should always talk to a lender to have this conversation, but you have to understand the bigger picture of refinancing. Typically you have to have equity in the house. You have to have it's a lot of different factors that kind of flow into refinancing. So even if you are going to refinance in the future, just be more understanding of what it takes to refinance. Have that conversation up front. If the lender tells you, hey, you can buy this right now, and then hopefully in the future, if you want to, you can refinance, and ask them, what does it take for me to refinance in the future? What are the key elements, or what are the requirements, or what is needed for this to happen in the future? Does my credit still have to be healthy? Do I have to have equity in my property? Do I have to bring any money to the closing table? Like, ask these questions. I know a lot of these questions might not be out there for someone to ask, and you just hear a lender saying like, oh, you can always refinance in the future. Everybody might not have the capability to do so in the future, all right? So just be mindful in regards to that as well. It says the challenges, the affordability is still at a hurdle, which we mentioned earlier, that even though the rates are softening, home prices are still high. They're still elevated. And then, of course, it says the median sales price of previous occupied U.S. home hit a record high of $435,300 in June. And again, we made sense of what the median price means. It means that these higher price homes are selling more than these lower price homes. So even if the medium is hitting a record high in regards to the home price, don't be deterred, because that does not mean in your area that home prices are there. This is just a median. This is a medium home, because in your area, homes can still be selling for $80,000 if you live in the Midwest. I don't know. I don't know. I live in, I'm in the Georgia, Atlanta metropolitan area, so I don't know what it's like in those other states, but I'm pretty sure you might have more reasonable home prices depending on where you're located. Inflation concerns. Inflation remains a wild card, as we talked about earlier. As a recent report showed, wholesale prices jumping more than expected. If inflation stays high, it could push bond yields and mortgage rates back up. And so this is what I've been saying too. to my realtor colleagues. I actually had this conversation last night with a realtor colleague of mine when we went out, and I was saying, because he was telling me everybody keeps talking about September, right? September is coming, and the Feds might cut rates, right? Everybody's like, okay, the Feds are going to cut rates in September. This means that mortgage rates are going to go down. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, we can't just be like, oh, the Feds are going to cut the rates and mortgage rates are going to go down. I'm like, because of the inflation, they're still reporting high inflation, and then and how the market is kind of moving. I said it might either do two things. It might either stay the same where it's currently at right now, or it actually might push the interest mortgage rates up. So that's how I'm kind of looking at it, and I could be wrong. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't look into the future. I can't tell you where the mortgage rate's going to go, but I feel like they might stay steady in the sixes, or it might actually go back up. So that's just how I'm looking at it right now from all the reports, from all the information that I'm seeing. Yes, will the Feds possibly cut the rates? They might, they may not. It just depends on what the next coming weeks bring in regards to the reports that come out. It says the Fed's cautious approach. The Fed has been hesitant to cut rates too quickly. It's going to take more solid news on inflation front, on the inflation front, to convince them to act. So that's in regards to the Feds. It says, what does this mean for you? So if you are a buyer, it says, don't get excited just yet, but keep a close eye on rates. Small declines can make a difference. Also be realistic with your budget. And that's what I tell everybody. Be realistic on your budget. If you are currently buying in this climate, in regards to this unpredictability, what's happening right now in real estate, be very realistic with your budget. And understand that we are hearing this news as far as property taxes going up. Actually, that's something I need to do. One of my buyers who bought about a year ago, I actually was supposed to do that yesterday, and I'm gonna do it today. They don't know that I'm doing this, but in the county that they're in this particular city, they're having a public hearing tomorrow in regards to trying to raise property taxes. So I said I was going to send that over to make sure they know that. I wanted to make sure that they know that and get ahead of that. Well, not ahead of it, but they can go out and be a part of that public hearing. So once I get off of this, I'm going to shoot them that over to let them know that that's going on in their county and in their city. So understand property taxes could possibly go up. Understand, your home insurance can go up, and we're going to talk about home insurance a little bit as well as far as insurance later on, before we close out of here. And then understand other things. If you're in an HOA community, HOA can go up, because if all of a sudden, if you have a pool in your community and all of a sudden the pool company goes up on their prices, in turn the HOA might go up on those prices. Maybe they need more money in the reserves, all those type of things. So you might get with a special assessment if you're in a condo building. Different things might happen. So you got to be aware of that in regards to buying a house and understanding where to put yourself at as a buyer. It says if you're a seller, lower rates could bring more buyers into the market, but don't expect a bidding war right away. Pricing your home competitively is still the key. So yeah, so if you're on the seller side, it's about bringing, like Corey West said here, we'll use this lingo, making prices more realistic to buyers. So if you are a buyer, you want to make sure in this type of market to price your house according to the market, realistic to the market, and realistic to somebody that might want to buy. Do not overprice. Do not go out here in this market and say, hey, my house I know it's only worth $700,000, but I'm gonna price it at $1 million. It does not make sense. Your house will sit, and then you will be chasing the market, and then eventually the buyer will tell you what your house is worth, and you might get less than what you really want. So know how to do that correctly. And it says, if you're a homeowner, explore refinancing options. It says even small rate reduction can save you money on your overall life of your loan. Yeah, if you're a homeowner, you can explore that refinancing option. But I always tell people the best option to do is possibly, instead of, you can go talk to a lender, explore those options, but also sit down and pull up an amortization calculator and see, hey, if I make more payments on said loan, can I reduce the years in which my mortgage is? And then also, can I possibly reduce the interest on that loan as well? And we'll bring up an amortization calculator as well. Every home buyer should be doing this. Every homeowner should be looking at this type of thing, seeing how you can possibly put more money towards your mortgage to, decrease that mortgage a bit quicker, and also cut out that interest. And every time I work with a buyer, I send my buyers over like those amortization calculators. I'm like, hey, plug some numbers in, see what happens. You can get rid of this mortgage. We want to be mortgage free. We want to be debt free. You know, we don't want no mortgage. Like, you know, of course, we want to make sure you can have home ownership, obtain home ownership, but we want to get rid of those mortgages, baby. And even though we're still stuck with property taxes and home insurance and things like that, but we want to get rid of those mortgages. So this is the oh, David said, great advice. Thanks, David. You know, I try to supply people with some information. At the end of the day, it's up to people, you know, decide if they want to use it or not. But all we can do is supply information, and it's up to people to make their best informative decision with such information. Okay, so this was PBS News. They had something similar as far as the average 30-year U.S. mortgage rate drops levels since October, which we talked about earlier. So let's get down here because I don't want to. Some of this is just talking about the same information. And so we want to get down to right, the mortgage rates, as we know, are by several factors. We know the Fed interest rate, it says right here, the main barometer is the 10-year Treasury yield, which lenders use as a guide to pricing home loans. It says the yield was at 4.29 at midday Thursday, up slightly from 4.24 late Wednesday. It says the yield has come down the last couple of weeks after weaker than expected July U.S. job market had a fueled speculation that the Fed will cut its main short-term interest rate next month. Says a Fed rate cut could give the job market and the overall economy a boost, but it could also fuel inflation just as President Trump's tariff policies risk rising prices for U.S. consumers. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but lately when I go into these stores, I've been seeing prices going up. Last night when I was out at eating with my friends and some colleagues, and I was like, I'm like, this meal went up $3 extra. And he was looking at me like, oh wow. I was like, you know, I nitpick everything because I'm very frugal. That's just me. I love to live below my means if possible because I know the things that I'm trying to accomplish. So because of that, I live a certain way. I don't believe in designer clothes. I don't believe in, you know, driving luxury cars. But everybody's lifestyle is different. Everything what people believe in is differently. I live very modestly, and I just believe as far as trying to put myself in a good situation. So as I get older, if I'm blessed to see an older age, I won't be out here trying to struggle to survive as an older person. But so I look at everything. David said it's hard to go bankrupt when you don't own any. It's hard to go bankrupt when you don't own anyone money. When you don't owe anyone money. Sorry. Yeah, it's true. When you don't owe anyone money, it's hard to go bankrupt. So it's always great to, if you can, try to pay off anything as quickly as you can. I understand we go through life situations, things happen, but in the meantime, if you have any, you know, excess funds, if you have any money, it's about, you know, placing it in certain areas that can make your life easier as you get older. And if any type of strenuous situations come on as time progresses, because we're always hit with unexpected things, right? Like my thing, right? Like right now with me, my car, I need 2 new tires on the front of my car. You know, is it unexpected? Not really per se, because I know I drive a lot because of real estate. So my tires are bald as far as the threading, but I also know that it's something that's needed. I also need to get it checked. I need to make sure, you know, that that I get the oils and serviced it correctly or whatever, right? So putting yourself in a better situation is always, you know, great as possible. But I understand people have different situations, different lifestyles, and different circumstances. So it might not always be conducive to do so, but it's like, let's try to figure out how we can put ourselves in those situations. It says, Clark, are there any hypothetical software programs that would allow me to play with the numbers and rates, or is that only available for agents? In regards to what, as far as when it comes to you actually like the purchase of your house, and then also putting like interest rates and all those things in, because you can use like mortgage calculators that are online. So if that's what you're kind of saying, I don't know. You can use a mortgage calculator. That'll help you kind of put in how much, if you bought a house at this amount, if you have this interest rate, these monthly payments. And then also, like I said, if once you buy the house and you close per se on your house, and let's say the house is $300,000, but your loan will be $250,000, you can then use a more amortization calculator to kind of see how quickly or how many years per se it'll take you to pay down your mortgage if you do monthly payments, yearly payments, a one-time payment. And I'll show that as well. So I don't know if I answered your question, Corey West, but let me know. But those type of softwares per se are online. They're available to everybody. You can Google it and it'll pop up. So I don't know if that's what you were trying to say. Other than that, I don't know no other software that us as agents have that are different from the main consumer public outside of our MLS really. Because everything is kind of accessible to everybody. I might be wrong. David, if you understand what he's saying, let me know as well, because I don't know if I answered it correctly. But let me know if that makes sense. I don't know. Sorry. And it says, so we kind of hit this. It says, meanwhile, a new inflation report Thursday showed prices at the U.S. wholesale level jumped to 3.3% last month from a year earlier. That was well above 2.5% rate that economists had forecast. It could hint at higher inflation ahead. So again, I'm not a lender. I'm not an economist. I'm just, I guess you could say, a knowledgeable realtor that likes to research and to understand my business, because at the end of the day, this is my career, this is my business, so I need to understand what's happening and how I can help people through this process, right? Whether buying or selling. It says higher inflation could push bond yields higher. It says driving mortgage rates upward in turn, even if the Fed cuts its key rate, which we kind of talked about earlier. Like I said, some of this is redundant information. It was something else in here, I think that might have been all in this particular article. All right, let's get out of this one. We're going to hit real quick in regards to the job report market. Hopefully this is making sense for you guys. If you're watching this on a replay, hopefully this makes sense as well. Again, I'm not a lender. I'm not an economist. I'm going to keep saying that. So I always tell people everything that you hear on these lives, please go back and consult with your local professional as well in your area, because again, I am in the Metro Atlanta area. So it could be things could, be different because different states, different things. So David answered. He said there is an app called Carl's Mortgage Calculator that is very helpful. It is on the Play Store for Android. Okay, so yeah, so there you go. Thank you, David. So yeah, you can use that calculator. I know some lenders do have a outside of just going online to the mortgage to type in the mortgage calculator, you can also talk to different lenders that'll also be able to. Some of them do have apps in which you can actually calculate how much your monthly mortgage rate could be. You can put the price of the house in there. You can put how much you put down on the house. You can put the HOA, the property taxes, the insurance, all that type of thing in the app. And then you can also put the interest rate. All those things can kind of go in there. So if you also talk to a lender, you can ask the lender, hey, do you have a mortgage calculator app that your company uses or that you know of that can assist me in regards to, playing around with numbers and things like that? Because a few lenders that I work with, they sign me up all the time. I don't know about you, David, but they'll sign me up in their different like little apps and their little calculator things and everything. But 9 times out of 10, you can also find this information online as well if you just type in the mortgage calculator. But yes, definitely go into that app store, like David said, that Play Store for Android, and download that Carl's Mortgage Calculator. David said it's very helpful. So if anybody else outside of just Corey West is watching this live or watching on a replay and you want to kind of play around with the numbers, check out that mortgage calculator as well. Thank you, David. Thank you, Corey West, for asking that question, because that's going to be very very good information for people that might watch this back later or are currently joining us now on this live. So July jobs report. So as we know, unemployment edges back up to 4.2%. So this is what recently came out. It says, so this is according to Realtor.com. They took this information from The Economist. It says, what were the employment trends in July 2025? It says the job report showed further labor market moderation, with job growth slowly to a net gain of 73,000 and the unemployment rate ticking up slightly to 4.2%. He said this would have been a slowdown from last month's surprisingly high figure, but the figure was revised so much lower that today's reading was actually a modest increase. So they're saying that as we all know, they had projected this job market situation as far as how many jobs, right, that we had per se. And then when they revised it, they realized that it was not what it was said. But however, they're saying that there's a slight uptick that occurred when they revised the numbers. It was a modest increase in regards to that revised job report. However, they are also seeing that their unemployment rate ticking up slightly. So the thing about the unemployment that I always say is, one, I do know that there is a something happening in regards to the job market, because I have friends who have either lost their jobs due to the company going out of business, going bankrupt, or may have gotten, terminated per se, and it's been hard for them to find a job. Some of my friends have been looking for about a year and a half, and they cannot find a job. They're applying, but they're realizing that some of these jobs that are on these platforms are actually ghost jobs, where they're really not looking to actually hire anybody. They're just putting jobs on these things to kind of meet their standards or whatever they got to meet per se. And so because of that, you have the unemployment rate ticking up. But we all know, in regards to unemployment, I don't know if it's changed, because it's been a while since I filed for unemployment. I think the last time I filed for unemployment might have been 2000, and when did I live in California? 2008 and 8 or 9 that I filed for unemployment when I lived in California. Yeah, around that time. So that's been a while. So back then I knew that you had to work a certain amount of time at the job in order to even qualify for unemployment. And then they were doing things in regards to like monthly looking blocks and all these type of things. So I don't know if that's the same now, because like I said, it's been a while. But at that time, and of course that was the midst of that great financial crash situation. The economy was, kind of in a sticky situation, and the job market was not the best, and it was just a lot going on. So I hope that doesn't happen again, but I feel like things are turning. I don't think we'll get to that same level per se, but it's some type of like small pockets of things happening that's kind of breeding similarity. Anyway, before I go on a tangent with that, so basically that is in that the unemployment has gone up. It's saying right here, the healthcare and social assistance industry saw the biggest job gains while the government shed workers. So we all know that the government laid off workers. It says, nonetheless, the relative stability in the unemployment rate highlights a phenomenon that Chair Jerome Powell called out in the comments following the Fed's July meeting this week. Even as hiring or labor demand has slowed, labor supply has also slowed, keeping the labor market relatively balanced. Meanwhile, earnings climbed 3.9%, modestly above readings. So to them, they still feel like the labor market is strong. They feel they don't see no weakening. Again, that's very, as they can say, relative, as they're kind of saying here in this article, right? Sometimes people don't realize when you're at the top, you don't realize what the bottom is going through. You see it you have a different vision, a different peripheral than what people at the bottom are going through. So sometimes I feel like we need to kind of intersect or interchange, however you guys want to say it, and well, not intersect, but more interchange, I guess. Kind of meet each other in the middle, right? Somebody that's experiencing stuff on the ground needs to say, hey, go up to the person at the top that has this perspective on their high horse, that they think nothing's going on in the world because it's not in their doorstep, and say, hey, this is what's really happening. We need to really have these conversations. We really need to, kind of commingle in that sense. But anyway, that's in regards to job reports. So if the job reports kind of keep going the way it's going, I don't know what they're gonna, what's going to happen in regards to mortgage rates kind of, going up, going down, staying steady per se. We know if the job market does get weaker, mortgage rates might actually come down because of the weakening economy per se. It says, so let's kind of understand a little bit about like the 10-year notes. Like we had mentioned earlier, the 10-year note kind of goes in tandem per se with that interest, with the mortgage rates. All right, so it says, what is the 10-year Treasury note and how does it affect your finances? So it says the 10-year Treasury note is a fundraising tool of the U.S. government. Investors buy what is considered a safe income-producing bond, and the government funds its operations. All right, and so it'll say, let's go down to, okay. It says, what is the Treasury note? The 10-year Treasury note is issued by the U.S. Treasury to anyone willing to lend money to the United States in return for earning interest on the amount the government borrows. Anyone can buy treasuries, individuals, financial institutions, even foreign governments. And if you guys don't know, China own a nice amount of treasuries, and Japan too. Hey, Lang, what's going on? Hey, everyone. Good evening. Great show so far. Great information. No problem. Thanks for joining. Thanks for taking the information. I know it could be a lot of information. I feel like I throw so much into these lives that I don't want to confuse people. But hopefully, it's manageable as far as kind of sucking in some of the information. Yeah. So it's a 10-year note. It's just one version of the Treasury notes, which come in various maturities ranging from 2 to 10 years. So as they're saying, you can do a 2-year to 10-year type of maturity in regards to your notes when you're buying a Treasury bond. It says the interest on bonds is paid every 6 months until the end of the term, which is called maturity. The interest rate of the note you buy is fixed and never changes. It says because Treasury notes are issued and backed by the U.S. government, they are considered amongst the safest investments available. So what typically might happen is that an investor might want to go and buy a bond or a Treasury note because it's more safer in a volatile, quote unquote, market. So maybe we might see more investors heading over here, maybe not. I don't know. It just depends on how things happen. I would think that if interest rates kind of dip lower and it becomes cheaper to kind of borrow money per se, because typically with the interest rate, when the Feds cut interest rates, it makes money cheaper to borrow. So if money becomes, I'm sorry, y'all, my phone keeps going off, and I put it on silent, but it keeps going off. If money becomes cheaper, I would think, and I could be wrong, this is just my opinion, I would think that the investors might go somewhere else where they find it better, where the money could do better, where you could possibly make a better return quicker, instead of going over into the bond market where it could take longer for those maturities to kind of hit. And it's more of a, it's a safer thing, and they're not really getting as much value there than they might get somewhere else where they can get almost do like if you were saying, let's equate it to a house, or analogy as a house, like a fix or flip. Like you fix it, you flip it, you get the money out of it quickly. So that's how I'm kind of looking at it. But again, this is just my opinion. Let's kind of go here. It says, how the 10-year Treasury affects mortgage rates. It says the 10-year Treasury is a reference point for national long-term interest rates, especially mortgage rates. However, home loan interest rates are determined by a variety of market factors, including, so we know, again, as mentioned before, it's by a variety of factors, right? We understand the 10-year Treasury, we understand the bond market, but then there also is the overall economic conditions, the financial markets as a whole, inflation, and of course, as they say, interest moves by the Federal Reserve. So it's a lot of factors. Again, in regards to the 10-year Treasury, it says mortgage rates and the 10-year Treasury tend to move in unison. If the 10-year Treasury yield moves higher, mortgage rates typically do too, but with a margin of separation. Historically, the spread between the two has been between 1 to 2% points. And so this kind of goes more into in-depth stuff, which kind of factors in being, an economist and all these things. So I don't want to go that deep into it and throw people off. But I wanted to talk about what happened last September when people thought that the interest rates were going to go down, and they actually moved up. And what most mortgage lenders do, where is it at in this article? So you can read it, because people didn't realize that, here it is right here, that mortgage lenders, sometimes what they do is they kind of bake the interest rate in already. So last September, when everybody's like, oh, Feds did a cut, but mortgage rates went up and they dipped back down, they didn't really move anywhere. People were like, well, what's happened? I thought the mortgage rates were going to go down. But at that time, the lenders had already baked in what they thought was going to happen in regard, like forecasting per se, what they thought would happen in regards to the interest rates cuts. So that's why we didn't see much movement in that. But this time around, I don't know if the lenders, I have to talk to my lender to see if they have baked in any type of interest rates already, or are they kind of waiting. But I'm saying, because interest rates dipped a little bit, I feel like, and I don't know if that's just because of the uncertainty as far as those job reports, or have lenders kind of forecast it again. But I'll ask and I'll come back to you guys with information next Sunday in regards to that. But it says right here, where we at? Says analysts said the Fed's lower rates were already accounted for. Okay, so here we go. Let's start right here. It says many Treasury investors and prospective home buyers wonder why Treasury yields and mortgage rates that tracked with them generally rose following the Federal Reserve's federal rate cuts last year. So people were wondering what happened. It says analysts said the Fed's lower rates were already accounted for in the bond market, which I was trying to tell. So this is what I was trying to tell some like the realtors in my office. Like they had this whole thing, right, where we were sitting at our sales meeting and they had a particular realtor that I'm like, is not very educated on real estate, but tends to be a good salesperson. And this is where you got to be a little careful with people a little bit. Great person, nothing bad about that person in general, but their focus is more on sales and trying to hit sales instead of understanding the whole perspective of real estate, how the market moves, how the trends are, what's happening, how everything kind of goes hand in hand. And so he basically, when the Feds cut the rates last September, he made a bunch of other colleagues in my office, which I was kind of disappointed in, go live on Instagram and say, oh, the Feds just cut the interest rates, mortgage rates are down, everybody better jump to buy a house, blah, blah, blah. And I was trying to tell them, please, I said, please don't say that because that's incorrect information. And a lot of people followed him, and then they ended up deleting their stuff afterwards because they realized it was the wrong information. So it's like, so you could be a great person, but then you got to understand the business you're in, right? You pushing sales and you're not pushing actual home ownership, actual home sellers, and educating, making people aware of understanding real estate. I think there needs to be a little bit more education in regards to some of my colleagues. Nothing bad, just more education. Trey West said, wow, I never knew these two were connected. I always thought the T notes were just investments for old people. No, they're not. And so like, that's how I used to think the same thing, Trey West, until I kind of got more into real estate and started understanding stuff, because in order for me to make proper moves to real estate as well, I need to understand what I'm kind of doing. And so because of that, I started, really diving into all this and understanding what's going on. And like I've showed you guys in numerous videos, understanding what's happening in subdivisions in the market, because this is information we need to know, because if you can understand how things move accordingly, you might be able to put yourself in a better position when you are purchasing or selling a house. So I tell people, just kind of look and see how things kind of correspond. But yeah, so it's very interesting. It is a very interesting thing. But yeah, I used to think the same way too. So don't think you were the only one. David said, me too. I think Warren Buffett has over 300 billion in U.S. treasuries. He is old. So I guess you are right. Exactly, David, right. A lot of us, that's the mindset that we kind of move in regards to thinking that. But hey, you might be able to turn around and actually buy a T-bond. Individuals can buy them. Like they said, financial institutions can buy them, different things like that. You might be able to buy a T-bond. You never know. I don't know what the starting price is from, but you never know. But so in regards to those interest rates, that's the reason why they did not move the way people expected last year in September. It says bond markets were already pricing an aggressive rate cutting cycle by the Fed, with the expectation that the Fed funds rate would be below 3% by next July. It says the LPL financial strategist Lawrence Gillum, said in an analysis, markets expected the Fed to cut rates 8 times before the cutting rate campaign even started. So they had, like my lender had said when I talked to her, they had already expected them to cut several times. So they had started kind of baking stuff in. So when it didn't do what it was supposed to do, that's what kind of caused that reaction. It says, so earlier rate cuts were already baked into the Treasury yields. It says this year, the Fed has held interest rates unchanged, including at its last meeting on July 30th. The Fed is waiting for a sign of which way the U.S. economy is moving, and the treasuries have wobbled, particularly due to ongoing tariff negotiations. So it's kind of crazy. It was like, the crazy Trump guy, he was thinking about this whole, like, creating tariffs and trying to say, hey, I wanted the tariffs because they taxing us this, we need the taxes, we need to do this, it's going to help the housing, do this. And it's actually what it's doing the opposite. It's causing more uncertainty, which is causing the lingering effect in that market, that treasury market, the lenders and everything with mortgage rates. Is causing an opposite effect right now. Will it cause a different effect in the long run? I don't know. Like I said earlier, I don't have a crystal ball. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. But right now, it's causing a total different effect in which he was, I guess, quote unquote, trying to aim for. David said, must be a good investment if he owns them. He is sitting on a fat stack of cash. Yeah, exactly. Warren Buffett is sitting on some money, but like, hey, we can all get into it. Like I said, I don't know the starting point to buying a T note or that bond per se, but we can all definitely kind of get into it, if we wanted to. So let's do one more thing in regards to mortgage interest rates real quick, and then we'll go into the amortization calculator. Then I'm going to talk about insurance, and we'll end it like that because I don't want to keep you guys here all night. I know I'm almost close to an hour. I can talk real estate all day long. So let me get out of this article because I was going to do this one, but we don't need to worry about these two. And then, okay, so this is currently right now as of August, what's today? August 15th, I think. I don't know. Sunday, August 15th, 2025, I believe is August 15th. It might not be the 15th, but it might, no, is it 17th? Maybe 17th. Okay, so as of today, the 30-year conventional fix is 6.58. So again, this is on these rates right here will vary according to your circumstances and your debt to income ratio, your credit scores, all these type of things will vary. So take this as a middle ground. Don't take this as what your interest rate will be because it varies with every person. The 15-year conventional fixed rate is at 5.9%. If you're doing a jumbo loan, a 30-year jumbo loan, so typically a jumbo loan is if you're like buying Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae has like an amount in which you can buy up to, and if you can't get that with the conventional or FHA, you then have to enter into that jumbo loan territory. So you have to talk to your lender if you are looking to do jumbo loans. Most time I see people that do the jumbo loans are buying about like $1 million houses and all those things, but you can ask your lender where that jumbo loan territory kind of hits. This is an ARM is at 6.5%. Currently, 30-year FHA is 6.8%, and the 30-year VA is 6.9%. As you guys can see, the +3 means that they went back up. So they were lower than that, and by the end of Friday, the market, it went back up. So it went back up a little bit. All right. We'll go down here real quick and read this. It says the highest rates this week, but close enough to the long-term lows. It said Friday proved to be the weakest day of the week for the underlying bond market and thus the highest day of the week for mortgage rates. Retail sales data was generally stronger than expected, especially when considering revisions and when focusing on the core numbers that stripped out more volatile categories such as autos, fuel, and building materials. Bonds which underlie rates did not move too much at first, but began losing ground amid the tougher Friday afternoon trading conditions. When bonds lose ground, it implies upward pressure on rates. Several lenders reissued slightly higher rates in the afternoon. This technically made Friday the highest mortgage rate day of the week. So they're basically saying that, of course, mortgage rates went back up on Friday. All right, so let's go into real. Okay, now what's going on? You guys hear that? I appreciate you guys staying around with me, giving me your Sunday evening or night, depending on where you're at. All right, so this is the amortization calculator. So again, if you are currently with, you can Google amortization calculator. If you currently hold a home loan, whether you're a home buyer or a home owner, you can go here and you can kind of play around with the numbers. So say if your loan, so again, this is the loan amount in which you take on after your down payment and all those type of things get taken out, and you're left, let's say, with a $200,000 loan on a 30-year term fixed, and let's say your interest rate was 6.7%, and that's just calculated right there in regards to that. So it's showing you that your monthly payment, again, this is just based off of the principal and interest. It does not have the taxes in there. It does not have the insurance in there. It doesn't have your HOA in there. It doesn't have those other key components. We're just, the amortization calculator just calculates the principal and interest on your loan, okay? Bank said, great information, amortization calculator. Yes, amortization calculator. We want to get that principal and interest down. We want to get rid of it as quickly as possible. So we are going to go look at our amortization calculator if we are a home buyer or a homeowner, and we want to look at it too beforehand. If you, well, you can't do it beforehand. You have to do it after that loan amount per se. But anyway, so it says the total of your 360 monthly payments, which is that 30-year, and then it says the total interest, sorry, on that loan. So it's $200,000 right here, plus the $264,614. In total, you're paying $464,614. That's how much you're paying in totality. Hey, what's going on, Donna? Thanks for joining. Thank you for coming in. So right now we're just looking at amortization calculator if you're a homeowner or a home buyer and you kind of want to see how to get that principal and interest down and get rid of it quickly. So now we'll go here and we'll click on optional extra payments. So right now we're in August. So August 2025, if you guys can see this, hopefully you can see it. August 2025. And we'll say, okay, what will happen if I decide to pay an extra monthly payment starting August 2025? So let's say we pay, and you guys can give me numbers too, if you want to just kind of play around with the numbers too. I'm going to start by saying, let's say if I pay an extra $100 a month on my my loan amount to get that principal interest. I'll click calculate, and then right here it'll break it down. It says with the extra payments, the loan will be paid off in 24 years and 4 months, and $58,823 in interest will be saved. So it's your total monthly payments will be 292 monthly payments. Your total interest will be 205. So remember, our total interest before was like 4. Wait, what was it 4? Let me stop lying. It was 2 something because it gave us 4 in total, but it took about 58,000 off of that interest. It says your total extra payments. So you would pay, if you're paying $100 a month, you would pay around in totality, as far as throughout the whole the years in that loan, you would be paying $29,000 extra in those payments, but you would be in turn saving $58,000, and then your payoff would be December 2049. So you can kind of play around with that. Let's get rid of this, and let's say if I paid monthly $1,000 monthly instead of $100 monthly. So $1,000 monthly, your payoff will be sooner, 2035. It'll be 10. It should be paid off in 10 years in a month. You will save over $189,595 interest to save. The total interest would be $75,000 now. So instead of $200-something thousand, it would be $75,000. However, in totality, in this 10-year period, you made the extra payment of $120,000, but you saved $189,000 something in interest. So when you pay more, monthly, yearly, let's say we did yearly real quick, and then we're going to head over to the insurance thing, and then I'm going to get you guys out of here so we don't be here all night, because I know I will be here all night. Because I always want to just try to show more information to people. If this is something that you might not know of, it's a way to kind of look at it now, right? Because the goal is to get you free and clear, even though, like I said earlier, you'll always have your property taxes. If you have an HOA, you'll always have an HOA. If you have home insurance, of course, if you're free and clear, you don't have to have home insurance, but you want to keep home insurance because you never know what can happen, right? But you will be able to, you can probably negotiate it better off, though, when you are free and clear in regards to your home insurance. And of course, if you have updated things, a roof, different things like that, you can negotiate that home insurance. Remember, everything is negotiable. Like, I know you guys watch, different videos, different lives, around real estate, different things like that. And they're always talking about even like working with realtors, not everything's negotiable. Remember that for everything in life, everything is negotiable. The realtor fees, the lender stuff, your home insurance, your auto insurance, everything's negotiable. Trust me, I've negotiated a lot of things off in my lifetime because I'm frugal. David said, those are fun to work with. It is amazing to see the amount you save with just paying a little more every month. Yes, exactly. It's amazing to see it. And so this is what I tell like the home buyers that I've helped. Like I said, I send them this amortization calculator. I tell them about it before we close. And of course, they might go and see it, they might not. But if not, I'll turn around and at the end of the closing, I'll send it to them. Because I'm like, some people look at it and they go through it and they telling me, like I had one client that was trying to buy. It didn't work out as far as it going through to the finish line. But he went right away and started doing the amortization calculator. And he kept calling me and texting me like, this is a lot. This is, different things. But it's good information to know. So, and then I had some buyers who didn't look at it at all. And then I made sure to still send them the link so they can do it. I can't force you to do it. To do this, I can just provide this information. I can't force nobody to do it. Clark, you should see if you could do some financial education class for homebuyer education students. It's so funny you said this, David. I actually reached out, if you guys all know, I'm in the Metro Atlanta area. So I actually reached out to Clark Atlanta University, and I'm in talks of trying to actually do a real estate workshop seminar. And I want to present different things like this, of course, understanding market trends, understanding how things kind of move in real estate, understanding, a lot of just diving into different things, small little nuances and stuff that people might not know or might not know of, just to bring extra value through their home buying experience if they are a homeowner already. And I tell people, I'm not looking for you to use me as a realtor. Of course, I would love if you want to utilize me as a realtor in your transaction. However, I'm just here to give you the tools, the necessary information, and you go from there. But yeah, so that's so funny you mentioned that, David. I'm actually in talks of Clark Atlanta University. I was like, it's so funny. They might turn around and offer me a job. I'm like, I don't know. But Lang said, wow, I love to see the goal of saving all that interest money. Awesome. New to it. Yes, play around with it. You did him a great service. Yeah, I'm like, he was calling me and texting me all day long, looking like playing around with this amortization calculator. David said, this type of stuff is the kind of information they need to teach in high school. I agree. I feel like we need to learn more about this stuff in high school, in college, and financial. We need more financial education about that can help us when we get out into the real world, because ultimately we want to be less on our financial debt, right? Of course, we know things happen again, so we don't know where, that debt can kind of pour in at. And we also know if you're in college, you're going to get financial debt, right, with student loans. So it's just a little different tools and things that we need to learn, like you said, in high school as well, as far as finances and understanding things in regards to real life experiences. So I definitely agree. So we did the $1,000 one, right? So this is $1,000 a year, because I don't keep y'all too long, and I'll get off of this, and then so you guys know you can go and play around with this. So it shows you right here, it'd be paid off in 25 years. So this is if you pay one payment of $1,000 every year. So it's every year you pay one payment of $1,000. It doesn't mean you're paying $1,000 just one time that year. It's every year, just like monthly payments and all that stuff. This is on a yearly consistent basis. Your total interest would be $211. You would save actually $25. The payments, again, because you're paying $1,000 a year, which is $25,000, which is 25 years, as mentioned before. You would pay $53,000. Your pay off would be $2,050. So you guys play around with that as an amortization calculator, understand how that kind of works, and see how that could benefit you. David said, think of the opposite: credit card debit. Credit cards compounding at 13%, 17%. That completely destroys wealth accreditation. Wait, am I saying it right? Accreditation. Am I saying it right? I don't know if that's what you mean. Or creation, sorry. Why am I reading it wrong? Wake up, Devon. Let me drink some water. He said that completely destroys wealth creation in the United States. It definitely does. The compounding interest, different things like that, it definitely destroys, wealth creation in the United States. So we need to learn these things. We really need to learn these things. Lang said, I would definitely a video tech school in high school would benefit students. Okay. I don't know what VO mean. Like, let me know. Oh, vocational? Is that vocational? Um, Unfortunately, credit card companies only want to pay the minimum. Yeah, they only want you to pay the minimum. So that's what I told people. Even when it came to me paying my credit cards off, or even paying my car note off, right? It's about paying more every time it goes to pay, or paying in between. Somebody else text me. Or paying, okay, vocational, let me say vocation, or paying like in between those times, right? But what we got so used to in America or United States, this is a capitalist country per se, and the whole goal is to, I don't, other people might think differently. I believe is to keep us in a rat race where we can never accomplish our goals or our dreams, or get to that final stage where we have comfortability and living and going day to day in the United States, as far as being comfortable enough with no debt, being comfortable enough with our finances, making sure we can live a healthy lifestyle in regards to, if I want to turn around tomorrow and buy a nice affordable dinner, I'm not feeling like, oh my God, I got to pay my student loan debt, I got to pay my credit card debt, I can't afford to do this, can't afford to do that, right? So yeah, it's like a rat race, like they always say. It's like a hamster wheel to keep you going, right? So it's always great if you can get these little nuggets here and there to kind of reduce that and get out of that race and put yourself in a better situation. Yes, Clark, please do. Will it be online or in person? Also, I'm doing so the class with Clark Atlanta will actually be in person, so it won't be online. I can try to do a Zoom or some type of, well, maybe not even Zoom. Maybe I'll just do it on the YouTube. I can try to come back and maybe whatever we talk about at the Clark Atlanta, we can just revisit that on the live, in regard to that conversation, and as well. But it will be live at Clark Atlanta. We are trying to work out things right now to see how I can get in there. It'll be myself along with another realtor colleague of mine will be a part of it. I will also have a lender, the lenders that have been on these lives with me, an insurance agent, the insurance agent that has been on this live with me, and a couple other people. I'm trying to get a tax assessor. I actually know a tax assessor. I was trying to get him on the live, but I'm not sure if he'll come on. Different people to kind of bring value and information. He said, it is a long stream. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want it to be too long. I don't want it to be too long. I'm about to get off here. I have been practicing MHOA several times before my stream. Yes, I know he's driving and everything, so I know he said he was listening in. But I'm gonna hit you guys with the last thing, and I'm gonna jump off here. I don't wanna, because we are hitting a long stream, and I don't want to be too long, because I know when I get too long, people don't want to watch me talk. So this is another thing that kind of hit recently in regards to credit history hitting home insurance costs higher than climate. I said, so this is saying in some parts of the country, homeowners who have low credit scores and live in areas that are less impacted by climate change are paying more for insurance than those with high credit scores who live in disaster-prone areas. Says this is the conclusion drawn in a new report that assessed data from nearly every U.S. zip code. It says the Consumer Federation of America, CFA, released a report this week in collaboration with the Climate and Community Institute. Both organizations are calling on legislators to prohibit using credit scores and credit history in pricing homeowners insurance, and to require more transparency on pricing models. It says charging more for having a low credit score than living in a high-risk community shows what insurance companies truly value, said Douglas Heller, CFA's director of insurance. The insurance industry says that increasing climate risk is driving premiums, but actually they slice and dice the market to make folks with low credit scores living in low-risk communities subsidize the price of the higher credit score customers, the insurance companies prefer. So basically, it's almost like, I don't want to say redlining, but it's almost like redlining to me, where it's like you're making people who live in certain geographical areas or people who have a certain credit score pay more for something, for them being in that area per se, right? Compared to if somebody has a higher credit score and live in a more affluent neighborhood, they're paying a lower insurance premium. And I've actually heard an insurance agent kind of mention this to me. I've never really dug deep into it, but I know that this does exist. And so for them to actually talk about this in the real estate news website, I was like, wow, this is, it's crazy to kind of see it on paper now. But, so it's like these areas that are not even impacted when it comes to, disaster prone areas, and they might be, filled with people that might have lower credit scores, or might not be live in the best neighborhoods or zip codes, as people put them, are paying more on insurance premiums compared to somebody that might just have a higher credit score, live in a more affluent area, but is more prone to disaster. It says, but the report has some detractors, with the American Property Casualty Insurance Association arguing that using credit scores to determine home insurance premiums actually saves most consumers money. So they're saying that it saves consumers money. However, we know that there are people who are paying higher insurance premiums because of the zip codes that they live in. And I'm telling you guys, I know this because I've talked to an insurance agent that told me that. So I hope I don't get them in trouble, because I hope nobody watches back and like, identify an agent, because I'm not doing that, because we got to be real in what's happening in life, and we know things happen. High penalties for low scores in 3 states: California, Maryland, and Massachusetts. It is illegal for companies to use credit scores in home insurance pricing, but in other states, other parts of the country, the low credit score penalty can vary widely. Homeowners who live in Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Oregon have low credit scores, which the study pegs at around 630. So they're saying that they found during their study, they found that a lot of lower credit scores kind of was in some of these particular states. Of course, we know this doesn't mean everybody carries this type of credit score, because it varies. In any state you're in, credit scores vary. Face the largest penalties, paying well over 100% more compared to those who have high credit scores around 820. That can equate to around $2,000 more per year in some parts of the country, according to the report. And yeah, we all know how people say about credit scores, right? They say credit scores typically look at people to assess risk, right? They say if you have a lower credit score, typically it could mean that maybe you don't pay things on time, certain things in regards to that low credit score. However, I also say everything's very nuanced in regards to anything in life, people in general. We don't know what type of hardship somebody might have fell on. It might be a one-time situation, or what happened recently, right, with student loans. Donald Trump, in turn, kicked the interest rates back in effect, student loans, everything back in effect, and all these people I know fell into delinquency and their credit score dropped. Like, these uncertainties, these small nuances, you don't know when they're going to occur or how they're going to occur, and this can affect somebody drastically when it comes to insurance quotes. It might not always be intended fault of someone to not pay bills or do things or whatever, right? We're human, and this is things happen. Things just happen. Lane said, I love being on here. Well, thanks for being on here. I appreciate it. David said, I didn't mean that. I meant it had to read after a long stream. Okay. So Croy said, Clark Atlanta, your family is connected to this university. No. My last name is Clark, for real, but my family is not connected to Clark Atlanta University. I should look into that. Maybe I should look into that and see. But I don't think we're connected at any point. You do a great job. Thank you, David. I appreciate it. And it says most consumers benefit insurance industry says the APCIA pushed back on the CFA's report, arguing that it repeats misconceptions that have been rebutted by numerous other government and private sector studies. Most significantly, the CFA, Lord, say that fast, consistently fails to acknowledge that insurers' use of credit-based insurance scores results in substantial consumer benefit. Studies have shown that the use of credit-based insurance scores saves more consumers money. It said, let's go down here. Consumer group counters insurance claims, but that's not the way Heller sees it. In an email, Heller alleged that insurance companies artificially inflate their base rates for the purpose of presenting credit penalty as a discount. fundamentally, if if insurers are going to give some homeowners a special break for their credit score, they have to change others with low credit scores more to make up the difference. So this console, it goes into the whole thing about, as we discussed, the credit score situation. So we got to be mindful in regards to that as well. Understand, because the only reason why I brought that up is also in regards to if you are purchasing a house, if you currently are a homeowner as well, and you're like, oh, my insurance is going up. What is happening? I live in an area there's no disaster has hit. There hasn't been any, flooding, any, fire damage, any hail, any all this or whatever. Why is my insurance going up, right? And as we all know, most people, we kind of depend on it for the big insurance companies. You kind of take on the that difference in costs in regards to what's happening around the world, right? But you also want to make sure that you're not getting stuck with higher insurance costs just because you're in a certain zip code, or you're this other type of things kind of affecting that insurance. So just have that conversation with your insurance agent as well if you're a home buyer or a homeowner. So that's why I kind of brought that up. They might tell you the truth, they might not tell you the truth in regards to that, but I just wanted to bring that to the forefront so you guys can know a little bit about that insurance as well. David said, hard to read, typo. Yes, it is very hard to read. But anyway, you guys, I enjoyed spending time with you guys tonight. I appreciate you guys taking out an hour and close to a half of your time to be here with me. David, thank you for joining me from Omaha, Nebraska. If you guys are moving to Omaha, Nebraska, know somebody that's shifting over there, friends, family, please go and connect with David. He is a realtor out in the Omaha, Nebraska area. And also, please go over to his YouTube channel. Give him, a subscribe. I know most people probably came to my channel from David channels and everybody else. Sorry, I'm over here. If you haven't, if you haven't subscribed yet to David's channel, go over there and give David a subscribe. And I'm gonna pull his channel up now so you guys can see what his channel looks like. Give him a subscribe so you guys know when he comes live. David is live every Tuesday evening Eastern time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're on the East Coast, check him out. Always great, valuable information. Always wonderful guests on there. Love what David is doing. Love all the value he provides. So please go over to his channel, subscribe to his channel if you haven't already. And I will see you guys next Sunday. Thank you, Corey West, for being here tonight. Thank you, Lang, as well, for being here. Thank you, Donna. I got to find Donna in here. Thank you, Donna, as well, for jumping on. And MH08, I know he's driving, but I want to thank him as well for jumping on. And I will see you guys next Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Have a wonderful week. And if you need me, my email will be below, or you can go to the channel. And my email is inside the the bio section or whatever section it's called. All right. David said, have a great weekend, everyone. Yes, have a great weekend, everyone. Lang said, thank you again, everyone, for your presence and participation on the show. Have a great week. And again, thank you so much for your time and knowledge of what you do best. This is to educate us. Yes, no problem. All right, you guys, take care. And we are out of here. I want to try to play me some music going out. I don't know if you can hear it. Trying to my live things up. All right, y'all. Take care. Bye-bye.